Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Anne and this is the health. If it's your first time here, welcome. Make sure you like, you comment, subscribe, and do join the family. If it's your second, your third, your fourth, your fifth, or your sixth time here, thank you so much. I appreciate the support so much. So basically today I'll be giving you a bit of my experience in terms of getting pregnant in the medical field, especially as a junior doctor, especially in the early years of your career. So basically for me, what had happened was I fell pregnant during internship and I fell pregnant during ComServe. So basically, after graduating, we are expected to do 2 years or 24 months of internship and 1 year of community service. So basically, after graduating as a doctor, you are placed at a specific hospital, be it like district, regional, tertiary, the works. You are placed at that hospital and are expected to rotate for 24 months in that hospital. So you rotate through the various departments, starting with things like internal medicine, pediatrics, so that you learn a bit of something, with all the various departments and specialties that there are in, the hospital, and basically the major ones. And yeah, so I rotated. I started working at a regional hospital in Johannesburg. I worked at Far Eastern Hospital as an intern. So basically, I fell pregnant, and obviously, like earlier on, unless you are one of those people who have like hectic morning sickness or whatnot, I didn't have much struggles, or problems, even with the harsh and hard working hours until 24 weeks when I started showing, 24, 26 weeks. And that's when you start seeing the cracks. So personally for me, it was hard because there's some people actually smart during pregnancy. They'll just be like alert and whatnot. I wasn't. I had pregnancy brain. I wasn't dumb. It's just my processing in terms of information was a bit, how do I put it? It was slow, man. Like I was just like, I'm like a phone that is full in terms of the storage. What makes or breaks the whole experience is where you are placed in your third trimester. So basically, depending on your clinical manager, you are either able to like pick which block you do in terms of how hectic it is. Some hospitals are able to accommodate for their pregnant interns and maybe shuffle things around, swap things around, so that you actually do a block that's not too hectic when it comes to your last trimester. And the hectic blocks are typically things like peds, surgery, maybe gynae, and casualty, because those blocks have theater time. Some of them you have to be in casualty if you're in casualty throughout the night, so you don't get time to rest. So they won't typically put you in those blocks, so they'll shuffle things around. But if you are not lucky, like how I wasn't, I ended up in peds in my last trimester. It was the worst time of my life. Imagine being in neonates. That place is literally like 40 degrees inside, like it's hot, and having a big stomach. Like I used to walk around with a chair and write notes, literally rounding through high care, and it was intense. It was intense, So basically, the whole experience is sort of surrounded and depends on that. So for me personally, peds was hard. There was no way of me swapping. It was just late. So in such cases, you just have to like suck it up, and it's hard. I can't even lie to you and say staying up for 36 hours straight is easy. It's not easy, and to us normal people, like I'm not pregnant now, but still it's not fun. So imagine you're carrying another human being. There's a lot of things happening in your body, so many changes. You are heavier, you can't breathe properly, you can't walk as fast, you can't think as fast, and on top of that you are emotional. So everything is just heightened. So it's pretty, it's challenging, but what is important is for you to just, ride the waves if you ever end up in that situation. That's the only advice I have for you in terms of the fact that you won't sleep, because typically the feeling that you'll have in your heart is of abuse. And it's not really abuse. Like it's like you don't see it when you're not pregnant, that actually this job is not right. It is not normal for you to stay up for 36 hours at a time. It is not normal for you to walk 10,000 steps in 5 hours. Like it's not normal. And I think you see the cracks more specifically when you're pregnant, because you're not physically there enough for you to keep up, basically. So the other thing that I found was a challenge was the fact that I think it was almost like an inner and personal struggle that I felt like you know how women are viewed in workplaces when they're pregnant. Some people see them as liabilities and things like that, like since you can't really use them as much, like sort of like useless. So I think for me personally, it was something that, like, I tried by all means not to have people to make people feel sorry for me. So I tried to keep up by all means, and maybe I shouldn't have done that, but it's just, that's also just on its own, having to tell yourself that you have to keep up, whereas it's impossible basically to keep up. It's almost impossible. Just that whole stress of trying to keep up and be ahead. It was not nice because I just put that upon my head, and because I was just like, I don't want to be just another pregnant woman, and I don't want to be a liability. I mean, as an intern, you are at the bottom of the food chain. Like, you are a slave basically in terms of treatment, in terms of the work that you do. You're a skivvy, you get sent around, you basically are the bottom. Sometimes you're just tired. Like, there were times where I'd just be like exhausted, like I'd be just like, I'm done, like I'm tired, but you can't like slack. Like, I think the whole medical career as a whole is toxic like that. That's why there's suicides, that's why there's drug addiction. It's just the whole environment that expects you to be perfect all the time, that expects you to be on par even when it's like not normal. That whole pressure can have an effect on your mental health. So that's one thing I'd advise people. Like, it's okay, like it's okay. There's a time I couldn't keep up, like there's a day I forgot I was on call. I don't know if I forgot or what. The struggles, guys. And the thing is that as women, we also hard on each other, because I remember there was a day like I forgot that I was on call. I forgot I was on call, and then the consultant was so rude. And you think that a man would be that, like, a man would be like, no, what are you doing? Like, I can't be sitting here and waiting for you in order for me to do a round. Like, things like that. You'd expect men to do that, but it's like women. And I'm just like, but sis, you also know pregnancy. You also know that it is rough. Waking up is a chore, especially later on. Like, I can, you can say that to me earlier on because I'm not showing the baby's not heavy much. I might have morning sickness or whatever, but it's not the hardest. But boom, at 35 weeks, and then you shout at me like that. And that environment, that's what I'm saying, guys. Like, toxicity means basically in our workplace, you might not know, you might be a student, but that's something to know that you have to expect, that toxicity is a thing, and you have to always not take things personally. I even told myself, I was like, at first I was like, oh, that was painful, but I was just like, I'm not even gonna stand up for myself. I was just like, I'm really sorry, and I just continued because. And I even told myself, I'm not going to take it personally. It's not a representation of myself as a person. Like, I know I'm hardworking. I know I'm like thebomb.com. I know I'm like on the A team. So those are the things basically to expect in terms of the whole emotional state, the working environment. You walk, you stand, it's hard, your legs will cramp, but that's the nature of the job. So let's get to the second section. Basically, then why not wait? Why fall pregnant? You don't have to fall pregnant, basically. Personally, for me, I was just like, I don't want to fall pregnant as a 35-year-old. I'm sorry. So some people will choose. It's choice, basically. So some people will fall pregnant by chance, and then some people it's by choice. So basically, it's not. Some people will choose to like do the whole thing and then only start a family and only fall pregnant after having specialized. That whole route. I mean, it's also a choice that some people make. Personally, for me, it wasn't going to work for me. I didn't want to fall pregnant as an old lady. I don't want to fall pregnant as like a 35-year-old person, because it can take that long for you to finish, specializing. And I also personally didn't want to have to bear the risk of having to fall pregnant at an older age. It's not always like that you'll have complications or you'll struggle to fall pregnant and things like that. It's not always like that, but there is a risk that when you fall pregnant at an older age, there's increased risk of you getting comorbid conditions. There's increased risk of you having to struggle to fall pregnant. So basically, I don't want to deal with that. I wasn't really interested in having to do that and wait that long, because obviously you must think, guys, like if you are with someone who's not in the medical field, especially if they're like slightly older than you, maybe 2-3 years or 4 years older than you, they're not gonna stand for that. They're not gonna have their first child like 40. So that's the other thing to consider. Maybe if you're in the same field, maybe you're able to do that thing of waiting. But personally, nah, fam. Nah, I wasn't gonna do that. Even though having to wait is beneficial in terms of the whole work environment. I mean, by the time you've specialized, you are the boss. Like, people listen to you. You come to work, lay down the law, go home. Basically, there's nothing much that you're actually doing. You're not walking, you're just doing rounds and are more advisory in terms of your role more than you are the actual workforce. Yeah, so I think in that sense it is beneficial to wait. Okay, so the cons of actually having to fall pregnant as a junior doctor or during internship is that because internship is a contractual like type agreement or a contract job of 24 months, you have to do the whole 24 months. So if you happen to go on maternity leave at any period during that 2 years, they extend your period by 4 months basically, because we all are by law meant to go on maternity leave by 36 weeks for 4 months duration, right? So for me, yeah, that's the annoying thing about it, is that you have to pay for it because there's that interrupted period during internship. And the other, con, it happens throughout your medical career. As a woman, if you fall pregnant at any point in time, be it internship, ComServe, or whatnot, your salary drops. So how our salary breakdown works is that we work 2/3 basic salary and 1/3 overtime, which is a capped overtime of 80 hours. And that 80 hours is extra hours that you do on top of your 8 to 4, basically. So the annoying thing about that is that if you don't do that, be it that you are sick and debilitated, or be it that you are pregnant and are at home with your baby, because you are not doing that 80 hours of overtime, you don't get paid for it. So that's why it's better if you are thinking of having a baby, especially in your early in your career, that you actually, in terms of your lifestyle, you pull back a little bit, you don't go for the expensive cars and things like that, because there will be a period in your life where you won't get that full salary. So you have to not get used to chowing or having things go over in terms of that 1/3. So it also helped me with discipline and saving and things like that, because I learned from like the beginning that, hey, that money may not be there all the time. So make sure any time, any day, that 1/3, I don't have debit orders that cross over towards. I don't have, like, my whole lifestyle, I can maintain it on 2/3 of my salary, basically. So that's also a good financial thing to actually keep in mind. If you fall pregnant during community service, you don't have to pay back the money. So that's a nice thing. So if you are smart, you'll fall pregnant during ComServe and not during internship, because during ComServe, also you're a bit of a senior nyana. There's also the interns, your interns, that are there. So ComServe is the better period where one can actually fall pregnant, because you don't pay it back. If it's gone, it's gone. You do only that 8 months of like work and stuff like that. So the other thing to take note of, especially if you decide to fall pregnant during the early years of your career, is that you might end up jobless. Yes, in medicine, job security used to be a thing until the government did not have money to pay for posts for doctors, basically. So there is a need for doctors. It's just that the government can't afford to create a job or have a salary to pay a doctor. Basically, the reason why you might end up jobless is that you end up asynchronous. And that happened with me. I finished in record time, like 6 years of medical school, and then I wasn't asynchronous. So asynchrony happens if you fail during medical school. Then obviously when you fail during medical school, then your whole career is extended if you have to repeat a block. So some people, if they had failed a block, they might finish varsity maybe around March, maybe around June, some around October. So it depends on how many blocks they failed, especially during the 5th or the 6th years of their medical school career. So basically, the annoying thing about being asynchronous is that whether before you start internship or if you fall pregnant during internship, you stand the risk of losing your placement. So we all apply for placement, and sometimes with some people, they'll say, okay, you're placed at maybe Frey Hospital. But then Frey Hospital then has maybe 30 posts for interns. And then now they have 29 interns. And then there's that whole vacant, that vacant post in and out. So basically, what happens is that if there's a vacant post, how it can get lost into the system is that sometimes during the financial year, especially if you're asynchronous to the point of after May, then what happens is that your post can disappear, or it gets taken back by the department to try to save money, because obviously now there's money allocated to a post that is not being used. So you can get such problems, when it comes to being asynchronous. And basically falling pregnant during internship can cause you to be asynchronous, whereas if you fall pregnant during ComServe, you don't become really asynchronous, especially if you weren't asynchronous to begin with. So that is the other thing that happens. And sometimes you find that your post is allocated to someone else because maybe they found that, oh, in January, until when are you finishing in March, April, May, or wherever. Then they find that, oh, there's a vacant post and there's a doctor who is not asynchronous, who is available to start. So they'll put the person there. Next thing, when it's time for you to go work, it's no longer available. So those are the challenges that you might face. So some people, because they don't really want to be asynchronous like a lot, they will, instead of taking 4 months, they'll take a month or 2 months. And I feel like, guys, besides it being illegal in terms of the whole, labor laws and whatnot, you shouldn't minimize time that's meant to spend with your child, especially those first few months. They're very precious, and they encourage breastfeeding and basically our hours and going back to work. Breastfeeding can become a bit of a challenge, if not a big challenge. So I'm not really for that, but I know people who are able to do that. When I was an intern, I know I considered it, but like HR was just like, no fam, like don't do that. We don't do that. It's not allowed type vibes. But I do know a lot of people who actually did that. Like they cut down their maternity leave so that they could quickly go back to work, so that they're only behind by like 2 months and things like that. So it's up to you. I mean, it's up to you. I don't like that, but if it's something that's really important to you to do, then it's something that's worth considering. Then you can talk to your HR people about that. I think I mentioned everything. I mentioned asynchrony, I mentioned unemployment, I mentioned salary drop, I mentioned the whole experience. It doesn't feel nice, but personally I feel like just do it, man. Like during ComServe though, be smart. do it during ComServe. Or if you're already in that boat of internship and being pregnant, all I can say to you is just be strong. Like, because even when you're a medical officer, you think you're done because you're not at the bottom, but still, you're still expected to be at work and you're still expected to put in the hours. And that is on its own hard. It's hard for pregnant women. It's not, the whole system is not built to support, pregnant women. I hope I was able to shed a bit of light regarding the whole situation, regarding the experience, just in case you're a person who's considering it, or if you're already on that boat, and you just feel like it's sinking. Just be motivated. It will pass. You will even forget about it. And because I'm not into it, guys. Also, if I missed anything, or if there's any questions that you might have, make sure you link them down below, or share a like or a heart on the comment section. I will catch you on my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.